With the 15th pick and with the 26th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft, the Washington Redskins select Dwayne Haskins, Montez Sweat.
Welcome all my fellow Redskin brethren and sistren. I am your man and resident Redskins fan, Lou. Thank you for joining me here on the Redskins Report. Dressed in all black like the Omen, which means I'm the bearer of bad news. This one pains me to say this, man. This one hurts deep inside my heart. But this shit is over, guys. Ladies and gents, this is over. Trent's never, ever playing another down in a Washington Redskins uniform. It's crazy because I've been the one telling you this entire time, hey, look, man, he'll be back. Don't worry. He'll be back right before the season starts. It'll be fine. And I talked about this on the podcast. I said that the thing that made this situation so unique, he's not the only guy holding out. Michael Thomas was holding out. He just got a massive deal. Zeke Elliott is currently holding out. Yannick Ngakoue is holding out in Jacksonville. Jadeveon Clowney's holding out in Houston. He's not the only guy holding out right now. Melvin Gordon III is holding out in L.A. All right? But the only difference between this situation and all of those situations is we know why those guys are holding out. We didn't know why Trent was holding out. We weren't sure if this was about money. We weren't sure if this was about the medical staff. We weren't sure if it was a combination of the two. We really had no clue. Was this about Bruce Allen? We didn't know what this situation was all about. And that's what made this so unique. And it also made it a little sketchy because you had no idea exactly what you were up against. And we went from no news for so long, no reports, nothing coming out. You had no idea how Trent really felt to getting a ton of different information all at once. It's almost like the floodgates opened on this situation and we have a much clearer view of how everything has unfolded over the last 15 months. If you read the Jerry Brewer story in the Washington Post, you've gotten some tidbits from people like D'Angelo Hall, who was on Inside Training Camp when they were looking at the Redskins, and he was talking about his conversation that he had with Trent. Or you're listening to various different tweets and different things that are coming out of different back channels, and it's all starting to make sense. And then when you start putting these pieces of the puzzle together, the pieces of the puzzle, when they're all in unison with one another and they're all lined up, it says Trent's not coming back. So I'll kind of go through everything that I've heard, everything that I've seen, kind of lay it out for you. You can make your own make your own determination on whether this is done or not. I'm telling you, from my point of view, this shit is over with. You see, I'm dressed for a funeral. I'm dressed in all black like the Omen. All right. I've already pronounced this situation dead in my mind. All right. It was a hell of a run in Washington. He was one of the best at his position. We can't say that very often in Washington about any position. All right. In football, it's very rare that we look up and say, hey, we've got the best one of these. And every time we do have something even remotely close, something happens or we F it up. The one time we had the best safety in football, that was out of our control, but he passed away. He was murdered. All right. The one time we have the best offensive tackle in football, or arguably the best offensive tackle in football, you know, we're homers. We're going to say he's the best. This shit happens. It's not often that we have the best anything, but when we do, it's usually taken from us. And this is a situation that, unfortunately, it's worked out the way that it has. I don't blame Trent for anything. I don't blame him for feeling the way that he feels. I don't really necessarily blame the organization necessarily for anything that they've done to this point, but they're starting to get really negligent. And you know, we don't handle situations like this very well, and we're starting to show our ass, which is what we do best in situations like this. When situations involve class, our organization shows their ass. So let's get to how we got to this point. Okay, so this is what we know. So again, we were in the dark for much of the process to getting to this point, now a lot of light has been shed. And like I said, it all kind of just happened over the last 24 to 48 hours. So again, yesterday I sent out a tweet that I retweeted essentially from an athletic beat writer that follows the Patriots. And he essentially said, and I like I said, I retweeted it, and I told you guys, if you're not following me on Twitter, because I know you're not getting all of these different tweets, you're not, doing all of the scavenger hunts that I do sometimes on Twitter to find some of this information. I try to bring it all to one spot. And so if you're not following me on Twitter, shame on you, at Louie T Network, turn on those notifications. But nonetheless, this beat writer, and his name escapes me, and I apologize for not remembering his name, but he writes for The Athletic, and he follows the New England Patriots, and he's pretty much said, look, the Redskins are putting out feelers about, potentially trading Trent Williams. The Patriots are said to be one of the potential suitors, and the Patriots have a big need at left tackle. Remember, they lost their left tackle, Trent Brown, in the offseason to the Oakland Raiders. And so they are lacking in depth at the tackle position, and Trent Williams would come right in and fill a huge void on a team that's ready to win a Super Bowl right now. So he said, don't know what the compensation looks like for the Washington Redskins and what they're looking to get back in return for Trent Williams. But I've been told by people close to the situation that this conversation is ongoing between the Patriots and the Redskins. There is open dialogue. So for what that's worth, I tweeted that out yesterday, or retweeted that, out yesterday. So that, and that was right on the heels of Donald Penn getting signed. So that made a lot of sense to me, but I still said, who cares about that? He's still coming back home, because home is where the heart is. I tell you guys this all the time. Home is where the heart is. He's coming back because we're the team that stuck by him when he was going through all those suspensions. We're the team that didn't give up on him. We're the team that gave him a big contract when he probably could have easily been looked the other way on and said, hey, look, man, you've had too many suspensions. You've missed some games. We can't give you a big deal. And we did that. We turned the other cheek and did it. So I thought the loyalty was here. And again, if you read Jerry Brewer's column in the Washington Post, you kind of see where this thing started to go somewhat sideways. So let's talk about that. So I read the Jerry Brewer story this morning. JP Finley tweeted it out. So it made me go and read it. And I retweeted it to you guys. So if you, again, are following me, then you probably read it too. But nonetheless, so I open up the story and I start reading it. And it essentially starts by saying, hey, this thing seems like it's happened overnight in terms of Trent being unhappy and not wanting to play here anymore. But this has actually been happening over time. And so he goes back 15 months to where the Redskins drafted Geron Christian in April of 2018. And not that Trent was extremely salty about that, but he was like, Morgan Moses just got his deal. Brandon Sheriff is about to get his new deal. I'm not guaranteed a ton of money over the next couple of years. They're drafting a guy that plays my position. They're not drafting him for Morgan Moses. He just got a new deal. I'm the one whose deal is about to expire. Is this writing on the wall? So he started to ponder, and as you get older and things start to happen around you, you start thinking about your mortality in the industry. So he starts thinking to himself, are they trying to send me a message here? And honestly speaking, I don't think that was what that was for. I think that was more the Geron Christian selection, that is. I think that was more about Ty and Secchi than it was Trent Williams. But it got Trent to thinking, am I going to be replaced here? Could I potentially be a cap casualty 2 years down the road? I've only got, and at that time he had 3 years left on his deal. But again, 2 years of guaranteed money. The last year of that deal, not a lot of guaranteed money involved. So if the Redskins wanted to cut bait, and let's say Geron Christian was ready to play and they felt like, hey, we could save $10 million on the cap if we get rid of Trent, that's something that he's starting to think about in his mind. So I don't think he was salty about them picking Geron Christian. I just think he thought to himself, that's pretty odd. If we've got two bookend tackles, why do you need another tackle when we've got a glaring hole here at left guard right next to me and you're spending a pick at tackle? It just doesn't make any sense. If you're trying to win, why are you looking to replace something that's not broken when we have a position that hasn't been fixed in the last 5 years? So that was his logic. I get it. Okay. So he started to think to himself, what the hell is going on around here? All right. So that was the first thing that kind of set this ball in motion. Then he gets hurt in 2017, I believe it was, when he had the injury to his leg, but he continued to play on. And it wasn't until the Redskins got out of playoff contention that he went ahead and had the surgery. But his family and people around him are saying, why are you putting your health on the line? Okay, why are you potentially shortening your career for this organization that seems to be prepared to move on without you? So you start hearing that from people outside, and you start taking inventory of what matters most. And now you start saying to yourself, maybe these people are right. Maybe I do have to start looking out for Trent Williams, because after all, the Redskins are looking out for the Washington Redskins. But he said, I can't let my brothers down. I can't not play if I'm capable of going, so I've got to go. So even though he ended up having surgery that year, the following year, he had a broken, thumb, hand, whatever, and he played through injury again, missed some games, but, he gutted it out, wasn't healthy. And, again, then you hear the voices again. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? You could be shortening your career here. You're getting up there in age. You have to start thinking about yourself. And then that's where the whole scalp situation comes into play. And now let's go back a bit to 2016. This is the first time that the growth on his scalp was first revealed. Trent was told by the Redskins medical staff that there was a growth on his head, and the Redskins told him, probably not a big deal, probably a cyst, but you should get that looked at. That's what he was told. And since the Redskins kind of downplayed it, he was like, if you're telling me, and I trust you guys, all right, you're the medical staff, you know what you're talking about. If you tell me that it's a cyst and that it's not a big deal, all right, don't worry about it. I won't get it checked out. And so, he continues to play with this growth on his head, on his scalp. And as things start to wear on, the Redskins training staff, they don't continuously tell him, hey, have you had that growth looked at? Have you had that growth on your scalp taken a look at? Have you had a second opinion on that? They didn't push the envelope, the envelope. They didn't push the issue. They didn't make sure that he got something done. And yeah, he's a grown-ass man. If it was important to him, he would have gotten it checked out a lot sooner. But again, he's going off of somewhat advice from the Redskins medical staff, which is, it's probably not that big of a deal. It's just a cyst. But, they threw in the caveat at the end, and it was like a throwaway line at the end. But you probably should get it looked at. So he trusted them that it wasn't serious. He continued to play with it. This went on for a couple of years until the growth got bigger. And Trent said, you know what? This is becoming a little bit of an issue. You said it was a cyst. It wasn't that bad. It's starting to become a little bit of a problem. I'm going to have this looked at. Turns out it actually was a tumor, not a cyst, a tumor. And what makes things worse is that the doctor pretty much said, bruh, you need to start getting your affairs in order. That's what people are told when you don't have a lot of time left and most likely you're staring death in the face. Your end may be imminent. That's when doctors tell you something like, you need to start getting your affairs in order. Shit changes in your mind. You become a lot more centrally focused. And at that moment, Trent Williams had that aha moment and things started to flash before his eyes. Now, that tumor turned out to be benign and not malignant. And so he dodged a massive bullet. All right. So they were able to do the surgery, and he had to actually have a follow-up surgery on his scalp to make sure that everything was removed in terms of the tumor. But that was a medical scare nonetheless. And because the Redskins medical staff downplayed it and even at one point told him that they thought it was a cyst, he was really, really taken aback by that situation and therefore doesn't trust them. I don't blame him for that. Now, again, you could look at it from one of two ways. You could say, hey, look, it's your body. They told you that you probably should have it looked at, and you disregarded that. But at the same time, you can look at it from the other end of the spectrum. If they tell you, and these are people that you trust, and they tell you it's not that big of a deal, it's probably just a cyst, then that's all you hear, because you're a warrior and you're a football player and you're a tough guy, and most times you really don't want to go to the doctor. That's not just football players. That's human beings in general. A lot of us don't like going to the doctor. So if you tell me, yo, you good, and you have medical experience, and I trust you, then I'm going to take your word for it. So you can look at it from one of two ways. Bottom line is, that's where the fracture really took place. There were other things that happened, but that medical scare was the last straw. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. That's essentially why we're at where we are right now. And then you hit the D'Angelo Hall audio. If you haven't had a chance to listen to that, I retweeted that on my page. But essentially, D'Angelo Hall pretty much came out and said on NFL Network, he sat down, talked to Trent, and he asked Trent, is this about money? Is this about the medical? And he said, look, Trent pretty much said to him, he said, the reason why this is unique is because we've never heard a player say, hey, either you get rid of the medical staff or I'm not coming back. I mean, if that doesn't tell you what this is all about, then I don't know what does. And I'm going to tell you this right now. The Redskins aren't getting rid of their entire medical staff. Not for Trent Williams. Not for just one player. So if that's the stance that Trent is taking, and Trent has always been a man of principle, ever since he's joined this team. You say what you want about him smoking weed and getting suspended. Trent Williams has always been a stand-up dude. He's always been a guy after games, losses, tough losses. He's always been the guy that stepped up to the mic and spoke candidly. He's always been a guy that's been looked at and viewed as a team leader. He's always been a stand-up guy, okay? So say what you want about him smoking weed. All right, smoking weed doesn't make you a bad individual. I know a lot of good dudes that smoke weed. That's not what makes you a good or a bad person, all right? Trent Williams is a stand-up dude. And the fact that this situation has gotten to where it's at because of what he believes was negligence on the part of this medical staff, and he's not coming back unless the Redskins clear house, he's not coming back. I'm telling you right now. So, in essence, when you put everything together, I'm here to tell you, this shit is over. All right? This shit is over. All right? Donald Penn is going to be our starting left tackle come week 1 versus Philadelphia. And we've got to approach it as such. And then to make matters worse, and this is what I was talking about at the beginning of the show when I said, when it's time to show class, we like to show our ass. Now the Redskins, and again, take it with a grain of salt. It's pro football talk. I can't stand pro football talk because they can't stand the Redskins. So I kind of make sure I keep my distance from pro football talk and Mike Florio, because he's been on the Redskins about changing the name and all kinds of bullshit. He doesn't like the Redskins. So anytime he gets to take a jab at the Redskins, he does so. But I see this, and I put out a poll, and I'm going to talk about the poll and the results on my podcast coming up tomorrow on the next episode of the Louie T Network podcast. But I talked about on that poll, and I gave 4 options out on the poll on my YouTube channel that I had. I said, with all this stuff and all the speculation about Trent, what should the Redskins do with this situation? Should they trade Trent? Should they wait him out and do nothing? Should they what were the other 2 options? Should they fine him, try to force him to come back? Or should the Redskins, I forgot what the other option was, but yeah, I threw fine him to force him to come back in there because that's the Redskin thing to do. That's the dumb shit that Redskins would do. Most organizations, sometimes you'll hear about fines in there, but once the player comes back, because generally these situations are about money. So if you find a guy and then you find a way to come to terms on an agreement, or he comes in, you get rid of those fines. This situation isn't about money. So fining him doesn't make a lot of sense. You're not going to make him come back because this isn't about money. All right? This is about the medical staff. So fining him isn't going to make him want to come in any more than he doesn't already want to come in. So if that's true, and I don't know it's true because, like I said, it came from Pro Football Talk, so I don't run with anything that they give me regarding the Redskins. But if there's any validity to that, that's messy, that's sloppy, and that's the Redskin way. And that pisses me off because Trent, again, deserves better. Now, I'm not one of these people that feel like, oh, you should do right by Trent type of deal, because at the end of the day, it's a business. All these players involved know that it's a business. That's why I'm always on the side of the player, because this shit right here, the NFL and the business of the NFL, it's messy. It's a cold business, the NFL is. Ask Mason Foster. Ask Mike Daniels, all right? Guys who got cut the day they were going to training camp. It's a cold, harsh business. And the harsh reality of this situation is that the Redskins don't owe Trent Williams anything. So at the end of the day, now, with the situation the way it is and Trent looking like he isn't coming back, Redskins got to do what's best for them, and that's move Trent Williams. So make preparations in your mind. If you're one of these fans that you get attached to players and this shit hurts, go ahead and start making that adjustment in your mind that Trent Williams, you will never see 71 with Williams on the back of the jersey in a Redskins uniform again. All right, that's dead. Trent Williams will no longer play for the Burgundy and Gold. Now the Redskins need to shift their focus to getting the best compensation package for Trent Williams. That's where we are with this situation now, because Trent isn't coming back, because if what D'Angelo Hall said is legit, and I have every reason to believe D'Angelo Hall had a heart-to-heart with Trent, because Trent has been talking to teammates. We heard from Brandon Sheriff, and he said, yeah, hell yeah, I miss Trent. I retweeted this out via JP Finley, that he talked to Trent, he being Brandon Sheriff, and he said, hell yeah, I miss Trent. And I talked to him about some personal stuff. He's talking to his teammates. He's talking to ex-teammates. He's talking to players. Donald Penn said it. I called Trent and talked to him before I signed. He gave me the green light. Why did Trent give him the green light? Because Trent knew he wasn't coming back. He told him, yeah, go ahead. You can play left tackle for them. I'm not coming back, bro. It's all yours. Hold it down. So at this point, the Redskins it's an obligation that they have to the organization themselves and to us as fans to do the right thing, and that's get the most for Trent. So now I preach patience. I'm not at a rush. I'm not going to be hasty if I'm the Redskins here and look to move him at the first opportunity, the first phone call that comes. I'm looking to wait this thing out, because somebody's going to have an injury that's going to necessitate a deal being done where a first-round pick changes hands. The Patriots, that's interesting, right? But I don't want the 31st or 32nd pick in the draft, because we know the Patriots are probably going to end up at worst in the AFC Championship game. At best, they're going to end up in the Super Bowl and probably win it. I don't want the 32nd pick in the draft. I don't want the 29th pick in the draft. Now, if that's what I got to settle for and nobody else is calling with a first-round pick, so be it. But I feel like somebody else is going to have an injury at left tackle that they're going to look up and say, look, man, we're in a great position. We feel like we've got a team that can win it all. And if we go out and get Trent Williams, we might be able to put it all together this year and win a Super Bowl. And that could be the 16th pick in the draft next year. That's what I'm talking about. You know, I'm looking for a top 10. But again, if someone's offering up a first-round pick for Trent Williams, that's because they think they're close. They're not going to end up with a top 10 pick most likely. So I'm not trying to be greedy here. I just want my first-round pick. I just want what's ours. All right, because Trent Williams is a top 5 tackle, top 3 tackle. You ask me, the top tackle in this league. And because of that, I want top-tier compensation in a package back for Trent Williams. In the NBA, you never get fair compensation when you trade a star. I don't think that's the case in the NFL. I think the Giants got awesome compensation for Odell Beckham Jr. Shame on you if you step to the old dirty Beckham. I just want what's mine. And I think at this point, fair compensation for Trent would be a first, and I'd also like a mid-round pick. I'm greedy, all right? This is a top-tier tackle we're talking about. This isn't chop and mince meat here. We're talking about grade A top choice left tackle, Trent Williams. Not talking about a journeyman tackle here. So I'm looking for some big dividends to be yielded here if we're gonna move Trent. But I think that's the only recourse right now. I'm holding out 5% chance that Trent comes back. It's highly unlikely. I mean, and that percentage is shrinking every day. And with the news coming out that I've heard over the last 48 hours, it ain't looking good. In my mind, this shit's over, man. We got to get something for Trent. And I'm not rushing to move him either. As I mentioned, I'm looking to get the best package possible. Injuries are going to take place. Let's just hope, knock on wood, that they don't happen to us and that other teams have to come calling and that we get some great compensation back for a guy that I thought had a chance to retire as a Redskin and potentially go in the Hall of Fame as a Redskin. As of right now, neither of those things looks like they're going to happen, if you ask me. But in any event, I am a Redskins fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Redskin spirit will never die. Redskin spirit will never fold until we meet again. Hail to our beloved Washington Redskins. Why can't we have nice things? I ask this question every year. Every year. Why can't we have nice things? I guess when your owner is Daniel M. Snyder and your general manager is Bruce F. Allen, you can't have nice things. It is what it is. I'll see you guys later on tonight. We've got football. It ain't good football. It's Hall of Fame football. But it's football nonetheless. We back. I'll see you later on tonight. You guys have a good one.
Louie T Network.